Hello and welcome back to Around the Campfire with AmeriCamp, the ultimate summer camp podcast. My name is Zara and I'm joined today with Caitlin, our marketing executive, who is usually the host of these podcasts, but she's on the other side of the table today. Welcome.
Hello.
Big applause for Caitlin. Woo! So yeah, we're going to be talking about the roles that you've had at camp so far, and your perspective kind of as a returner, but not to the same camps.
Ooh, crazy.
Love the sound effects.
Thank you.
So yeah, do you want to just introduce yourself, say a little bit about your role at AmeriCamp and what you've done at the summer camps that you've been to the past 2 years?
Of course. So, hello everybody. I'm Caitlin. I am the marketing executive for AmeriCamp. So I do all the social media. So I've spent 2 summers at camp. I've been to 2 different camps, 2 different size camps. I had 2 different roles. So my first year, I went to camp in New York State called Camp Kindering. This was a co-ed camp, overnight camp, and it was a Jewish camp. I was a general counsellor sort of 5 days out of the week for the teen girls, so they were 14, 15. And then on one day of the week, I was the photographer for the camp. So I would just sort of walk around all day, just shooting pictures of the kids doing various different things so the parents could see what they were up to and see that their kids were alive and well and happy and living life at Camp Kindering. And then I returned to a different camp the second year, which was last year, just to sort of have a variation of experience and also just get some content for AmeriCamp. So I returned to Camp IHC. I didn't return to IHC, that was my first time. I went to Camp IHC, which was in Pennsylvania, which is actually like 10-15 minutes away from Zara's camp. But at IHC, I was on the media team. So I was sort of in the social media department. So most of the, Instagram stories, the day-to-day, and then also doing a few TikToks here and there amongst 4 other people who were on the social media team who were all very, very talented at what they do. And then there was a larger media team of photographers and videographers as well who were insanely talented, and I'm extremely jealous of their skills. So yeah, that's me. That's my variation of experience on camps.
Seasoned traveller and counsellor, honestly.
Yes,
Jack
ma'am.
of all trades over here. Which was your favourite? No joke.
No.
You can never pick a favourite. They're all different in their own way, and they bring different experiences.
Exactly.
I guess going more towards the sort of like media role that you did then, can you sort of like talk a bit about that in terms of maybe like what experience you had prior to going out to camp, maybe the like training that they gave you, and sort of like the structure of the role? As you mentioned in your first summer, you were like general counsellor and a photographer. Did you sort of in your second summer have as much time with campers, or was it more sort of like media based? How did that all work?
Yeah, so the media role at IHC was basically just media. There wasn't sort of any campers involved in it. I didn't have a group of kids or anything like that. I lived in a staff bunk with like 10 other girls who were either on the media team or in the office or worked in the cafe or worked, in various different roles, like they were nurses and things like that. So I didn't actually have kids in my second year, which was a change for me because I enjoyed having kids in my first year. So it was a bit of an adjustment, but it was still a great experience, and it was a different experience, which is great. So I sort of went into the role with having experience with marketing mostly. I did my degree in marketing. Obviously, I work in for AmeriCamp, so there's a lot of marketing and media involved in that. So I sort of knew how social media worked in a way to make it appealing to people and things like that. When we arrived at camp, there was obviously orientation, which was just the time to, first of all, get familiar with the camp itself, but also just get familiar with, the equipment we'll be using. There was, social media team, so it was mostly just phones and stuff, but just getting used to the way that they've shot things in the past and how they'd like things to be posted and how often we need to post and things like that, which was a good experience. And then obviously once the kids got there, we can take all that experience and actually put it into practice and get the whole thing going as well, which was good. So yeah, I think it was just a great experience to develop my social media skills, which I use day to day in my job here at AmeriCamp, and also just like have a good time at camp and shoot loads of content.
Amazing stuff. It sounds really interesting, to be fair, and like you know, obviously you had that prior experience going in, but being able to sort of develop that and put that to use in a different environment, I'm sure that's meant that you've now come back over here and, you know, back to AmeriCamp, working here, and you've got like a wealth of ideas and different sort of ways of looking at things as well, which I feel like can be said for sort of most roles at camp. You know, the sort of skills, those transferable skills that people always talk about, you learn so much over there, even if it's like about yourself or just about like working, that you can bring back. If you were to kind of be talking to maybe applicants that had like media experience over here, what would you sort of say to them in terms of like applying for the roles, in terms of like experience that they might need, or sort of, I don't know, if someone sort of came up to you maybe like at a campfire and they're like, okay, so I've got this, that and that to do with photography or media or marketing, what would you recommend? What's your sort of top tips for like getting hired by a camp? What would you say to someone?
I think this depends on the camp. I think some camps will be less particular about skill sets, and some, you know, might need a portfolio and things like that. It really just depends on your level of skill that you have and what sort of camps that you are interested in. I think if you can go into it, if you are a photographer, a videographer, or anything like that, if you can go into it with a little bit of a portfolio and just what you can do and what you have done and things like that, just so they can physically see it. I've seen in the past at camp fairs, people have spoken to camps and they haven't been offered a job on the spot because there isn't anything physical there to show them. So I think having something like that, having a portfolio, having a link to a website or anything like that can be very, very helpful. I know we saw this firsthand at the November fair. There was a guy who brought an iPad to the camp fair with his portfolio on it, and he knew exactly what he wanted, what kind of camp he wanted, and he walked away with minimum 5 offers from different camps, and he had his pick because he was sort of prepared. But if you are just, you know, you are just have an interest in it, things like social media and things like that, you know, if you are passionate about it, then you shouldn't really have an issue finding a camp that would appreciate that. I think it also just looks great on a CV as well, if you are looking at going into anything in the media in the future, that you have this experience firsthand as well.
And now sort of, I guess, moving away from like the media sort of aspect of it all, and just your sort of, I don't know, journey as like a camp counsellor. How did you find being a returner? Because obviously there's one thing being a returner going from your first summer at camp to then your second summer at the same camp. You obviously had a wealth of experience in a multitude of sort of like aspects from kindering. How did you then find going in as a returner, but pretty much just like a newbie, to another camp?
It was interesting because there was a lot of things that I knew, and like how things worked at camp, and like what orientation was like, and like how to deal with kids and what OD was and things like that. So a lot of that was transferable, which was really helpful. I did feel more comfortable going into my second camp just because I had that experience of doing a camp beforehand. But obviously there are things that are different at each camp, so I had to learn certain things about how that specific camp worked and how their sort of activity periods run and what they did for flagpole and things like that. So there was a few things that I did have to learn and that I did find interesting, but overall it was very helpful having had been a returner and having had been to another camp beforehand. So obviously I just knew how camp, you know, overall worked. It was very helpful, but it was also really fun learning all the new things about camp as well.
And then in terms of, obviously we've spoken about advice for returners, and, you know, if someone's thinking about going back to camp, what would we kind of say to them, you know, in previous podcasts. But with your very sort of special experiences that you've had, sort of, I haven't really heard of this before. What would you say to a person that's been to camp before and is not, you know, intending on going back to the camp they've been to? That could be for a variety of reasons. You know, they might choose that they don't fancy going back there anymore. Maybe they've sort of outlived that, or potentially they've decided a bit maybe later on in the season that they wanted to go back, but that position's been filled. What would your kind of advice be in terms of like applying and seeking another camp?
Genuinely, like, I think it can be hard for people to let go of the first camp that they've been to, you know, for whatever reason. But I think camp is so special regardless of where you are. And I think going back as a returner to a new camp is such a special experience because you get to learn all of those new quirks, quote unquote quirks of the camp, and just to see how it works and what people are like. And you also meet so many new people that you don't know. I think that's sort of what we were talking about on your podcast is, you know, you return to camp and then you have your group of people that you met your first year. But going in as a first-timer returner to another camp really does push you out your comfort zone again. And I'll be doing it for a third time this summer, which is like, for some people sounds like torture, like having to meet all these people again. But it's just so amazing. Like, it's the best thing. And I've met people from so many different countries across both of my camps. Like, I've just recently, last week, gotten back from Costa Rica, where I stayed with a friend who I met at IHC. And if I'd never gone to a new camp, maybe I would never have met someone from Costa Rica, and never had those connections as well. So I definitely think do it. I think, you know, everyone says do it, but genuinely, like, if you are looking at going back to camp but not sure if you want to go back to the same camp, just see sort of what's out there, see what the team think would be a good fit for you, and just talk to the camps and just be transparent with them about the experience that you've had with your previous camps and why you think you'd be best for them as well. So yeah, just give it a go and give it a go and see what's going on, and yeah, just do it genuinely. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Push yourself out your comfort zone.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Camp in general is about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy being a returner, going back to the same camp, to be back in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And like, there's definitely ways that if you're returning to the same camp, you can change it up each year. Like, you're still going to meet those new people, but like, as you said, you've now got two like huge like friend bases and friend groups from two completely different areas. Like, although you will get a group of the same people going back to each camp, and then you will get new counsellors each year, like, that doesn't compare to having a whole new camp. Like, and you know, they always call it like your camp family. So now you've got like, you're gonna have 3 like camp families. It's crazy. Very good experiences that you've shared.
Thank you.
It's been really nice hearing your kind of views of it all and your little stories. I actually have a new segment for the podcast that I've just recently thought about, and it's called the quick fire round.
Oh god. Okay.
So I'm just going to ask you a handful of questions, and you can give like a sentence answer maybe.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to go into real details and you think that they're podcast worthy, I will completely stand by you in that choice.
Okay.
But general, like, couple of word answers.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
First question.
Yeah.
If you could describe camp in one word, what would it be?
Magical.
Oh.
Yeah, magical.
If you could describe your experiences at your camps in one word, what would it be? You can do one for each year if you fancy.
A lot of learning.
Okay.
Like understanding myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So learning about yourself.
Learning about myself.
Yes, I love that.
I don't know if there's a word for that.
Self-discovery.
Yes, self-discovery.
She didn't go to like Southeast Asia to find herself.
No.
She went to AmeriCamp.
It's true.
Question number 3. Where was your favourite place that you travelled to? Actually, wait, sorry. I'm going to change this and there's going to be a 2-part question.
Okay.
Just give you a tiny little bit of time to think. Favourite place that you travelled to and why? And then one place that you'd be like, if someone's going there first summer, where should they go to?
Okay. Favourite place? I think Nashville. Yes. It has to be Nashville. I think the vibes are just immaculate, and weirdly everyone from my camp was there at the same time. Nashville, definitely. And then if you are going to camp for the first time, just go to New York. Like, a lot of camps fly in and out of New York anyway, but if you've never been, like, just go and see the city. A lot of people don't really think about that when they're traveling, because a lot of the states are around that, but just go to New York City and be like, oh my god, what is this place? Just go there.
New York City's great as well, because there's like, I think like the second weekend of August, a lot of camps up in that sort of like New England, northeastern region finish around that type date. And generally, if your camp is within that sort of area, they'll likely drop you either near New York City or in New York City. Or in the city,
yeah.
So my first summer, like, my whole camp pretty much was there. but we went to a bar which was genuinely filled with camp counselors. Like the DJ was on, and he was like, "We love it when summer camp's finished."
Yeah.
And it was full of my camp, Camp to Wonder, and then Tyler Hill counselors. But I would 100% agree with you on that one.
Yeah. I was in a hostel in the middle of Queens, and in my room there was like 3 of the girls, and they'd all been to a camp. And so there was 4 of us who'd all been to like different camps, and I was like, this is just so weird.
I love that.
It's crazy.
That's so fun. We're going to end it on this thing, so I don't just want to keep asking random questions.
Okay.
But 5th question, and I want you to explain this one.
Okay.
Because it's the last, so we might as well give a good answer. What was your favourite day at camp? It can be from either of the years.
Day,
like, or like experience or moment, like. Think about like a moment and then say like that it was that day.
I know exactly the moment. It was a day off that we had in my first year at Kindering, and me and sort of my closest friends from that camp, we all went on this like adventure to this waterfall. There was no waterfalls to be found. It was just like a lake. But like we just went to the supermarket before, and we just sort of stocked up on snacks. We just went to the lake, and we just sat around the lake, and we just sort of had music playing, and we just got to know each other, and we were just hanging out, and it was just like it was what I needed at that time, if that makes sense. And it was genuinely like, oh my God, this is so special, and it felt like a movie. And I was like, oh my God, this is like you see this in the film, and it's like, oh my God, so cute. And it was just like, it was just nice. Yeah. And I think that made me feel like, oh, I found my people at camp. And yeah, that was, it was a day off, but it was really special, a really special moment.
I love that so much. You like talking about that, it's just gonna be like butterflies. I feel like those moments are just what camp is about.
Yeah.
Like you have so many, and like one of them will stick out to you, but you have so many of those moments at camp where you just feel so happy and like at home and just comfortable.
Yeah.
And that is just what camp is. It's just that on repeat all the time. But like one of them, like that moment will stick out, and you just think, wow, so happy that I
actually cried out of happiness as well. I know. They were like, why are you crying? I'm like, this is so nice.
Your life is a movie. You're like a
my life was a movie. But yeah, I think that was really special.
I love that so much. Well, I hope that you have more moments like that this summer.
Thank you.
And that you have a fantastic time. I'm so excited for you. I mean, I'm a bit biased because I've had campers both years, but I'm so excited for you to, have campers again this summer, form those bonds with your campers and with a whole host of new counsellor friends, and travel to even more places after camp.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm sure that you'll come back and tell us all about your experiences. But yeah, for now, that's all we've got for you. Thanks for
Thank you.
choosing to answer some questions rather than be the host today.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed being a host.
I've really enjoyed you being a host.
Oh,
you've been fantastic.
Amazing. Look at this. We're just so good at this. Okay. Well, yeah, that's all we've got time for today. But we've got plenty of other podcasts that you can go and give a listen to if you're on your way to camp. Yeah, if you want us to talk about anything else in the future, drop us an Instagram DM or a TikTok DM. We can try and answer your questions. If you want to be on a podcast, let us know why that is, who you are, what camp you went to, and we'll try and fit you in. But yeah, that's all for now. Have a great day.
Bye. Bye.